He was 17, 1 year older than me, but looked almost 20, or because he wasn't good-looking. He was very good-looking. Perhaps it was because he was so dauntingly unique, a virtuoso pianist destined for greatness. I was clever. I didn't just parrot what I read. I was able to digest it and form my own opinion, but my cleverness was purely analytical. I was still too excited by learning to have found my own voice. Karl's opinions of the world was so uniquely expressed in his music that it was as if its mysteries were visible only to him. "We all go mad in the end," I said, my eyes aflutter as they let go of Karl's to look him up and down in his entirety. It was a hot July evening, hotter and muggier than I had expected when choosing what to wear for my friend and the men on the moon. A nice, short skirt would have been so much cooler than jeans, and my tucked-in linen blouse was another mistake. It was clinging to my body like paint that wouldn't dry, its long sleeves far too tight to roll up. I had covered up too much of myself and felt stupidly overdressed. Karl was very noticeably underdressed, and looking at him made me feel even hotter. He was wearing shorts, an unbuttoned denim shirt whose sleeves had been cut off, and a pair of flimsy flip-flops. Really, he was quite a dish. What I could see of his body was sheer definition, a picture of athleticism altogether disproportionate to effort. Being a prodigy, Karl never did sports. I had never seen so much of him before, and now I could see even more. After wriggling his fingers, Karl had brought his hands together at the back of his head and stretched his torso backwards as he yawned, exposing the hardness of his abdomen and both sides of his muscular chest. "My God, you have such enormous nipples!" The words had spilled out of my mouth sooner than I had been able to think them, let alone hold them back. I could feel the rush of blood that would turn my ears crimson, and was grateful that I wore my hair long. Karl seemed hardly fazed. Without moving his arms, my poker-faced friend looked down at his chest, first to the right and then to the left. "I suppose I have," he said. I burst into a fit of nervous laughter, and when he still remained impassive, "You mean you hadn't noticed?" "Honestly?" Karl knitted his brows, repositioning himself on his stool as he landed an extended finger on each of his nipples. "Is it important? Should I see a doctor, you think?" His hair, the darkest shade of brown before black, already too long before the school year had ended, was by now a disorderly mop, and clumps of it had fallen forward when he lowered his head to examine himself. There was something of the foreign aristocracy about him, I thought, but French rather than German, which I knew was absurd. "They don't feel abnormal," he said. "If you don't stop rubbing them, they'll grow even more." "Ha!" said Karl without stopping. And suddenly I was feeling territorial. "Has someone else been playing with them?" I asked in a manner that implied it was my business. Well, he and I were friends. We could ask each other anything. Karl looked at me as if he hadn't understood what I meant. "Playing with them?" "Like you're doing now, only harder, much harder, maybe even biting them." "Biting them?" I had to roll my eyes. "It's called foreplay," I said. "Ah, you mean sex?" And letting go of his nipples, he cracked his fingers twice before swiveling back into place, and after staring intensely at the keys for a couple of minutes, he spread out his fingers and held his hands up in the air. "Not Für Elisa again, please." Even before I had finished, Karl had gathered his hands in his lap and was staring at the ceiling. "You can if you want to," I said. I wonder if anyone has bitten your nipples. About what you said, that we all go mad in the end." "We do," I said, laying my covered forearms flatly on the piano. "All of us." He seemed unruffled, even by the prospect of madness. If his eyes betrayed any emotion, it was only curiosity and wonder, perhaps mingled with a measure of pleasure, the pleasure of mocking me, probably. "Don't," I began. "We mustn't tell Mummy," Karl interrupted.